You know how people say, you'll remember where you were when everything changed? I remember down to the pattern on the plate. My name's Halden. I'm 43, live in Indiana, and I used to believe that if you stayed loyal, showed up, and didn't cause problems, you'd be okay. Maybe not happy, maybe not dancing through life, but okay. It turns out okay can vanish in less than 8 seconds. It was a Friday evening. My wife, Corinne, invited me to a formal business dinner for her department's quarterly awards. She worked in legal compliance for a pharmaceutical startup that was growing like wildfire. I worked from home as a technical writer for agricultural equipment manuals, tractors, combine harvesters, pivot irrigation systems. Glamorous stuff, I know. My world was diagrams and torque specs. Hers was tailored blazers and wine with Latin names I can't pronounce. Corinne said it would be nice if I came, and she used that tone, that light, hopeful tone that I hadn't heard from her in months. So I put on the one suit I owned, practiced standing without slouching, and showed up. I remember walking into the private dining room of that rooftop restaurant. It was sleek, dark wood, skyline views, and candles that smelled like vanilla and something herbal. People were already sipping drinks and half-hugging each other. I stood by her side, tried to look confident, and told myself, just get through it. Smile when needed. I didn't know then that Corinne's smile wasn't real. I didn't know that everyone at the table already knew what I hadn't yet figured out. We were seated in the middle, her colleagues flanking us. She kept her hand on my thigh under the table, which, now that I think about it, felt more like a control grip than affection. Then it happened. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't even dramatic. The appetizers had just been served. The man across from us, her department head I think, raised his glass and made a toast to unexpected partnerships that become game changers. Everyone chuckled politely. Then Corinne leaned slightly forward, smiled, and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "Well, sometimes the side project becomes the real thing." There was a beat, a flicker of silence, a shared glance between two women across from me, and then laughter. Controlled, careful laughter. My fork never touched my plate. I stood up, didn't say a word, didn't even look at her. I just left. I don't know how I managed to keep walking all the way to the elevator without collapsing. What followed in the hours after, the texts, the voicemails, the realization, that part unraveled me. But that sentence, those 8 words, were the first crack in the dam. And I had no idea how deep the water behind it went. When I got outside, the air felt like it didn't want me in it. I remember standing on the sidewalk, hands in my pockets, watching a car pass slowly under the amber glow of the streetlight. I didn't have a plan. I didn't call anyone. I didn't even check my phone. I just walked. No idea where I was going. No destination, no logic, just motion. I found myself in a 24-hour diner on Lexington. Sat at the counter, ordered a cup of coffee I didn't drink. My reflection in the stainless steel napkin holder looked like someone else. I must have sat there for an hour and a half before the first text from Corinne came in. "Halden, please don't make this weird." That was the first one, followed by, "You misunderstood the joke. Come back. Everyone's asking where you are." I didn't reply, not because I was trying to prove something, but because I had nothing to say. My heart was pounding in that quiet, exhausted way it does after a long fall. I wasn't angry yet. That would come later. At that moment, I just felt cold, empty, like I'd stepped into the wrong life by mistake. She tried to call 3 times. I let them all ring out. The 4th time, I turned my phone off. You need to understand something. I wasn't the kind of guy who questioned my wife. I wasn't jealous. If she stayed late at work, I never raised an eyebrow. If she traveled with male colleagues, I trusted her. We weren't the overly romantic couple, but we had history. 16 years, 2 cats, a townhouse with a leaky upstairs window we always forgot to fix. I thought we were safe in that kind of boring, long-haul marriage people joke about but secretly crave. But now I couldn't stop playing her words over in my head. Sometimes the side project becomes the real thing. That wasn't just a joke. That was a message. A casual, cruel signal delivered with a smile. I started wondering who was the side project. What did they know at that table that I didn't? Had I been the only one who thought I still had a marriage? The next morning, I went home early, hoping maybe it was all some bizarre misunderstanding. She was already there, still in the dress from last night. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, barefoot, staring at the floor. "Halden," she said softly, "we need to talk." No apology, no remorse, just that flat, corporate tone I'd heard her use in conference calls. She didn't even wait for me to respond. I think it's time we stop pretending we're happy, she said. I've met someone. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And it's been going on for a while now. I just stood there, like an idiot, still wearing the shirt I'd fallen asleep in on the couch at the diner. I didn't want to hurt you, she added, like that was supposed to fix something. But you've been distant, absent. You stopped noticing me a long time ago. I wanted to scream, to beg, to ask her what that dinner was really about, if that was her way of telling me in front of her coworkers that I'd been replaced. But I said nothing, just like the night before. It was becoming a pattern. That day, I moved into my brother's spare room with a suitcase that smelled like heartbreak and a head full of unspoken questions. I didn't tell anyone what had happened, not even him. I said we needed space, that things were complicated. I couldn't bring myself to admit the truth, that I'd been blind. That while I was proofreading tractor repair guides and wondering if she was bored of me, she was building a whole other life somewhere else. And somehow, the sentence she spoke that night echoed louder than the entire confession. I still hadn't asked her who he was, but I was about to find out. A week passed, and I kept pretending I was fine. That's what people do, right? You say, I'm good, when someone asks how you're doing. You make coffee. You answer emails. You sit through conversations you don't hear and fall asleep staring at the ceiling because the silence is louder than any noise. My brother, Byron, didn't press me. He just gave me space, handed me the Wi-Fi password, and slid a folded towel onto the foot of the guest bed without a word. That quiet kindness hurt more than Curran's betrayal. I didn't go back for my things. I couldn't bring myself to walk into that house and see the life we built now feeling like it belonged to strangers. But I kept my wedding ring in my pocket. I didn't wear it. I wasn't delusional, but I wasn't ready to let it go either. It was like a question I couldn't answer yet. I started obsessing, going over old conversations, scrolling through her social media, her LinkedIn, trying to spot clues that had been right in front of me. One post stuck out. A team retreat 2 months ago. Napa Valley. She never mentioned it to me. Just said she had regional meetings. In the photo, Corinne stood beside a man I didn't recognize, tall, silver hair, confident smirk. His hand rested a little too comfortably behind her back. Her smile didn't look forced. I saved the photo to my phone, zoomed in like a detective. I didn't even know what I was looking for. A name tag? A shadow? Anything. On the third night, Byron's fiancée, Justine, came over for dinner. She worked in real estate and always had some wild story about nightmare clients or flooded kitchens. That night, though, her voice dropped when Curran's name came up. Byron had told her just enough to know things weren't great. Justine glanced at me, hesitated, then said, Look, I don't want to get involved, but didn't Corinne work closely with a guy named Elliot Danner? I froze. The name didn't mean anything to me at first, but then it clicked. Elliot. That was the name she muttered in her sleep one night a few months back. I'd asked who it was, and she half laughed, said, No one. Just a guy from work. Elliot Danner. Executive Director of Strategic Partnerships. The one in the photo. The one who toasted to unexpected partnerships. The room felt colder instantly. I nodded, pretending it didn't matter. After they went to bed, I searched everything I could find about him. Married. 2 kids. Reputation for mentoring younger staff. There were rumors in the office review sites, anonymous comments about his hands being a little too familiar, relationships that crossed boundaries. I didn't sleep that night. I paced the room, whispering questions I had no answers to. Did they laugh about me behind my back? Did everyone at that dinner know I was the joke at the center of their little inside story? I finally broke down and called Corinne the next morning. She answered like she'd been expecting it. So, I guess you know. I asked her one question. Just one. Was it him? Silence. Then a sigh. Not a guilty sigh. A tired one. Like she was annoyed to still be dealing with me. It doesn't matter, Halden. That told me everything. I hung up. I should have been angry. Should have cursed. Shouted. Demanded answers. But I just stood there, letting the silence eat through me like acid. What hurt most wasn't the affair. It was that I had become so irrelevant to her that she didn't even care enough to deny it anymore. The woman who once cried when I scraped my knee on a camping trip was now erasing me with the same indifference she'd give to deleting spam. I knew then that there was no going back. But what I didn't know was that Corinne had already made a decision that would affect my entire future, and she hadn't told me yet. The next blow didn't come with screaming, or slammed doors, or messy fights that end in broken lamps. No, it came as neatly as everything else Corinne did. in a manila envelope sitting on the kitchen counter of the house I hadn't dared step into since the night of the dinner. She texted me 2 days later. "I think it's best you come by when I'm not home. I left some things for you." The wording was clinical, like she was asking me to pick up a prescription. Part of me didn't want to go. Part of me wanted to burn the place down just so I wouldn't have to see it. But curiosity is cruel. And somewhere deep down, there was still a thin, pathetic thread of hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd left a note saying she was sorry, that it was all a mistake. I drove over late in the evening when the streetlights made our neighborhood look like a movie set. Everything was too clean, too staged, too quiet. I let myself in with my key, the one she hadn't asked me to return yet, and the first thing I noticed was how sterile everything felt. Like a hotel room after checkout. Half the furniture was missing. Family photos stripped from the walls. Only the faintest outline of where they'd hung, like ghosts, remained. And then, on the kitchen counter, the envelope. No note. No explanation. Just my name scrawled on the front. Inside, divorce papers. Pre-filled, lawyer-drafted, ready to go. And taped to the inside flap of the envelope, because she couldn't resist being thorough, a business card. Elliot Danner, Senior Vice President. His personal cell scribbled in blue ink. The message was clear. I wasn't just being replaced. I was being cleared out like old inventory. No discussions. No second chances. No chance to even pretend like it could be salvaged. She had made her choice, and she wanted to make sure I saw exactly who she'd chosen over me. I leaned against the counter, staring at the papers, at the business card, at the empty shell of what used to be our home. And for the first time since the night of that dinner, I felt something sharp and real tear through the fog inside me. I wasn't angry yet, not properly, but the weight of humiliation was beginning to turn into something different. I put the envelope back on the counter, untouched. I didn't take it with me. I didn't tear it up. I didn't throw it across the room. I just left it there, like some artifact of a civilization that had already crumbled. On my way out, I passed the coat rack by the door. One of Corinne's scarves, navy blue with tiny white stars, still hung there. I don't know why, but I took it, wound it once around my hand, tucked it into my jacket pocket. A stupid, useless relic. As I pulled the door shut behind me, I realized something else. This wasn't just about her choosing someone else. This wasn't even about betrayal anymore. It was about how small I had become in her eyes. Smaller than a business card. Smaller than a scarf forgotten by the door. And the worst part was, I had let it happen. But something in me, something raw and unfamiliar, was starting to crack open. Corinne thought she knew how the story ended. She was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on Byron's lumpy couch, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in slow, hypnotic circles, the scarf clutched in my fist like a lifeline. It smelled faintly of her perfume, something citrusy and sharp, and it made my stomach twist into knots I couldn't untangle. I knew I should have thrown it away, should have let go. But there was something inside me that wasn't ready yet. Some part of me that still needed to understand how we went from forever to signatures on cheap printer paper. Around 4 a.m., I got up and started pacing. Every creak of the floorboards under my bare feet felt like a drumbeat. I wasn't thinking clearly. I wasn't really thinking at all. I grabbed my laptop and opened a blank document. Not because I had anything to write, but because I needed somewhere to put the rage and confusion that were clawing at my insides. I started typing every memory I could think of. Our first date. The first time she said she loved me. The day we moved into the townhouse. The Christmas where we adopted the second cat after too much wine. Every dumb, beautiful, ordinary thing we had built. I wrote until my fingers cramped, until the words blurred into a stream of half-finished thoughts and broken sentences. And then I stopped, because I realized something sickening. In every memory, I was reaching for her, planning for her, building a life for us. And in almost every memory, she was already pulling away. How long had she been gone while I kept pretending we were still in the same place? The next day, I skipped work. I couldn't sit through Zoom meetings pretending to care about hydraulic fluid specifications while my world burned down around me. I drove to the office where she worked, sat in my car across the street, and just watched. Like a creep. Like a fool. I wasn't even sure what I was hoping to see. About an hour later, she walked out, laughing, hair pulled back, bright red lipstick she never wore around me. And at her side, Elliot. Tall, smug, polished. His hand brushed her lower back in a way that was too casual to be professional and too intimate to be innocent. I sank lower in my seat, hands trembling around the steering wheel. She paused before getting into his car, and turned her head, as if she felt me watching. For one awful second, our eyes locked across the distance. And then she smiled. Not the soft smile I used to know. A new smile. Confident. Final. She got into the car, and they drove away without a second glance. It hit me then, in a way no words ever could have. I wasn't just replaced. I was forgotten. She had already rewritten the story of US, and in her version, I didn't even make it to the end. I sat there long after they disappeared, letting the truth settle over me like ash after a fire. I wasn't going to get the apology. I wasn't going to get the closure. I wasn't even going to get the decency of being acknowledged. And for the first time since that dinner, something inside me shifted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It was acceptance. But with acceptance came a cold, clear promise I made to myself, right there in that sun-baked car seat. If she wanted me out of her life, she was going to get her wish. And when I left, it wouldn't be the messy, embarrassing breakdown she probably expected. It would be clean, silent, absolute. She had taken everything from me. But this one thing, my dignity, she wasn't going to touch. 3 days later, I went back to the house one last time. I waited until I knew she'd be at work, scheduled in those endless strategy meetings she always bragged about. I didn't tell Byron. I didn't tell anyone. Some things you have to do alone, no matter how much they tear you apart. When I unlocked the door, the air inside felt wrong. Hollow. Like the house itself knew I didn't belong anymore. I stepped inside, letting the door click shut softly behind me, and stood there for a long minute just breathing it in, the ghost of our life together. I didn't bring boxes. I didn't plan to strip the place. I just wanted what was mine. The old leather journal Corinne gave me when we first got married, the watch my father left me, and a few photos that hadn't yet been packed away or tossed out like garbage. I moved through the house like a shadow, silent and methodical. Every room was another wound, the kitchen where she used to hum while cooking, the living room where we curled up on Sundays, the bedroom where I now felt like an intruder. I found the journal tucked in the bottom drawer of my nightstand, covered in a fine layer of dust. It hurt to see it treated like something disposable. I picked it up carefully, tucking it into my jacket like it was something alive. The watch was still in the drawer too. Thankfully, the one thing of mine she hadn't given away or sold or thrown out. The photos were harder. I only grabbed 3. One of us at the lake the summer we got engaged. One of our old cat, Murphy, sprawled across the couch. And one of Corinne and me on our wedding day, smiling like idiots, believing we were invincible. I hesitated with that one, fingers trembling. Part of me wanted to tear it up, burn it right there in the kitchen sink. But I didn't. I slid it into the journal and zipped my jacket closed. No drama. No scenes. As I walked toward the door, something caught my eye. On the entry table, the one where we used to toss our keys and grocery lists, was a single envelope with my name scrawled across it. I almost didn't open it. I almost left it there, untouched, to rot along with the memories. But curiosity is a disease. Inside was a handwritten letter, short and strangely impersonal. Halden, I hope you find peace. We grew apart, and it's nobody's fault. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. Corinne. No apology. No real acknowledgement. Just a final dismissal. Like I was a task on her to-do list she could now cross off with a clean conscience. I folded the letter once, neatly, and placed it back in the envelope. I didn't take it with me. I left it right where I found it, a monument to everything she had become. On my way out, I paused one last time at the door. No goodbye. No final look back. Just a long, deep breath. When I stepped outside, it felt like I was walking out of my own grave. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't shatter into pieces the way I thought I would. I just left. And the most shocking part? It felt like freedom. The house, the life, the woman I had poured myself into. None of it had room for me anymore. And maybe, just maybe, I was finally ready to make peace with that. But as it turned out, Corinne wasn't quite done yet. There was still one more surprise waiting for me. One that would make everything I thought I understood about our ending look like a lie. Life didn't bounce back quickly after I walked away. Everything moved in slow, dragging inches. I spent most days buried under freelance work, answering emails, fixing broken sentences about machinery no one would ever think twice about. Byron kept his distance, maybe sensing I wasn't ready for pep talks or forced advice. I appreciated it more than he'll ever know. Weeks passed. Some days, it almost felt like the world had righted itself. Other days, I'd catch myself staring at a coffee cup for an hour, wondering how something as stupid as a sentence at a dinner table had managed to gut my entire life. And then, One afternoon, it happened. I was deleting old emails, trying to clear space on my laptop, when I noticed something strange. It was an auto-forwarded email from our old shared cloud account, the one we'd set up years ago for joint schedules and bills. Apparently, Corinne had forgotten to unlink her new devices. The subject line made my blood run cold. Our weekend plans winking face. Against every instinct, I opened it. The email wasn't meant for me. It was a thread between Corinne and Elliot. Short, careless. Attached were hotel reservations, spa appointments, and a photo, a mirror selfie of the two of them, arms wrapped around each other, grinning like teenagers. Her wearing the necklace I bought her for our 10th anniversary. Him in the shirt I remembered seeing folded in our guest room once, back when I thought he was just a co-worker passing through town. But the worst part wasn't the photo. It was the text Corinne had sent underneath. Feels good not to have to hide anymore. He was never going to be anything more than dead weight. Can't believe it took this long to cut him loose. Dead weight. That's what I was to her. Not a partner. Not a memory. Just an anchor she'd finally shrugged off. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I wasn't crying. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't even moving. Just existing in a frozen second where everything inside me twisted into something uglier than I ever wanted to know I was capable of feeling. I thought I'd already accepted the betrayal. I hadn't. The truth was, there was still a part of me, some fragile, stupid part, that believed she hadn't meant to hurt me. That maybe it had been messy and complicated and painful for her too. But this wasn't messy. It was deliberate, calculated, cruel. I closed the laptop without saving anything, without responding, without even thinking. For the first time since the night she shattered my life, I didn't feel hollow anymore. I felt something sharper, colder, heavier, and that feeling told me exactly what I needed to do next. I didn't confront her. I didn't send a scathing reply or crash their weekend plans like some movie revenge plot. I didn't even tell Byron or Justine what I had found. I realized pretty quickly that none of that would give me what I wanted. It wouldn't bring back the years I had wasted. It wouldn't rewrite the silence at that dinner table, or the cold way she'd left me folded up like an old letter no one bothered to read anymore. Instead, I did the only thing I knew I could do. I disappeared. I signed the divorce papers without changes. No arguments over the house. No battles over furniture or money. I let her have it all. Every last thing she wanted. I left the signed documents at her lawyer's office with a single note. There's nothing left to fight for. I didn't show up to any of the court dates. I let it all happen without me, like it was happening to someone else, someone I barely recognized. The months that followed blurred together. I moved 2 towns over, rented a small apartment above an old bookstore where no one knew my name, and tried to rebuild a life from ashes. Days bled into nights. I spent a lot of time walking aimlessly through parks, sitting in diners alone, pretending to read books I couldn't focus on. The worst part wasn't being alone. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was realizing how invisible I had become, not just to Corinne, but to myself. There were nights I sat on the edge of that creaky twin bed, staring at the one box of things I'd kept, the watch, the photos, the journal, and I wondered if I'd ever feel like a whole person again. I'd like to tell you I found some beautiful, redemptive moment, that I discovered a passion, traveled the world, met someone new who made it all make sense. But that's not what happened. What happened was quieter, lonelier. Some wounds don't heal cleanly. Some stories don't end with triumph. Sometimes you just learn to carry the emptiness better. And you move forward, not because you're healed, but because standing still hurts worse. I never heard from Corinne again after the divorce finalized. I'm sure she's out there somewhere, living her new life, telling herself whatever story helps her sleep at night. Maybe she even thinks of me sometimes. Maybe not. As for me, I'm still here. Still trying. Still breathing. Sometimes that has to be enough. Because not every story ends with a roar. Some just end with a whisper. A fork never touching a plate. A door closing quietly behind you. And a man you used to be, fading into the night.